So, Miss JL, tell us your thoughts or feelings about being unschooled or deschooled.
Um, my thoughts, I didn't know what it was at first, but when I realized it, it sounded like something I could work with,
What do you mean something you could work with?
like something I could try out or experience for the first time.
Okay. And so far, how do you like it?
It's um, it's good.
It's good. Is there anything about unschooling that you would rather not be doing? Or would you rather add or take away?
Um, I don't have any complaints about it.
So you have been to traditional school. You have also been homeschooled. What are your thoughts on that compared to unschooling, traditional school and homeschooling?
My thoughts, my thoughts on traditional. Um, well, traditional. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't really like it.
What did you not like about it?
The long, excruciating 8 hours,
Mm.
and it's it just and it was hard making friends or some things I just didn't understand, and it sometimes made me doubt myself.
What do you mean, doubt yourself? Like what? Like your confidence or your ability to do stuff? What do you mean?
Both.
And why did you feel like that?
I don't know. It just felt certain subjects felt pressuring, trying to get the answers right, and with certain limited amount of time.
Okay. So was that on testing or just testing and school or just school homework in classwork?
Classwork.
So you felt pressure to get the answers right or just to get the work done or what?
To get the work done.
So what about homeschooling? What's your thoughts on homeschooling?
Homeschooling is better than traditional schooling because there's no more pressure. There's no more doubting my ability and knowledge, and I don't have to worry about any more traditional schooling standards anymore.
Okay. And so what are your thoughts about college and going to college? What are your thoughts about college as a thing? And then what are your thoughts about you going to college?
My thoughts about college as itself. A lot of people say that they've learned a lot from college, from my curiosity to research, and I always thought that one day I'd go, but sometimes I rethink it. But my thoughts of college as itself, I'd say is probably a good place to learn more.
Okay. So do you think you'll be going to college?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure yet.
If you were going to go to college, you had to make a choice today, what would you go to college to do or be? To study?
I'd study theater. Is theater? I'd study theater.
Okay. And what is your career goal? What is the thing you want to do or be to make money?
Acting, singing, dancing.
Okay. So if you became an actress, we have had conversations about acting and the stability of that career. And we know that not all actresses get work back to back. Sometimes they don't get work for years. Sometimes they do really well, make lots of money, have a hit movie. Sometimes even you do theater acting, you do stage plays, you do well, you win awards, and then sometimes there's no work. So what are your thoughts of what you would do in between acting gigs to make money to support yourself?
In between the acting, if I hadn't gotten some casting calls, I'd probably be working on what's the word? Improving my voice and vocals.
But what would you do for money? How would you support yourself? How would you pay your bills and feed yourself?
I'd make videos of myself covering other dances.
So you would use online platforms, social media, things like that to make money. So what do you mean, like YouTube?
I use YouTube for that.
Okay. And you'd make money how? Because some people don't know about YouTube and doing covers. What's a cover?
A cover, well, there's a lot of ways to explain covers. Depends on the subject. But for dancing, a cover of dancing, you watch someone else's video of them dancing to the song they created or the song that someone made for them, and they start dancing to it, and then they posted a song. You watch the video, then you learn the choreography, and then you put it as a cover because it's not your song that you created, and you're covering it because what's the word? It's hard to explain, but a cover basically is you just practicing and dancing to the song. But
so how would you make money from doing covers? I've never used YouTube before, and I've never seen anybody do a cover, but it sounds interesting. But how do you make money from that?
People's entertainment, and after I get enough views, I'd start hosting spots where I'd be dancing and people would come watch.
Oh, so you would teach your own dance classes? Oh, do you have to go to college for that?
Not that I know of.
Cool. So you would be a freelance choreographer, teaching other people choreography. Interesting. And so that's how you'd feed yourself in between gigs. Cool. So it looks like you have some type of plan, some thought put into how you would take care of yourself. But I didn't hear you say anything about getting a traditional job or going to college for any traditional learning like a doctor, anything like that. Your heart is set on acting in theater and dance and singing?
Yes.
And you don't have an interest in doing anything traditional job-wise?
No.
Cool. Okay. Anything else you'd like to share with us about unschooling, deschooling, what it's done for your life, how it's helped you or made you feel better about not being pressured to come up with the answers in school? Anything you want to share?
Well, deschooling has helped improve my confidence and my listening and focusing, so I'm grateful for that.
And what about the rules of the house? Just one last thing, because a lot of people, when they hear unschooling or deschooling, or when they research and look it up, it talks about having free range of your life, and you can go to bed when you want to. You don't have to brush your teeth. You don't have to take a shower if you don't want to. You don't have to eat no vegetables. You don't have to do anything, not just for school, but for life too. So what are your thoughts on the way deschooling or unschooling is really supposed to be compared to the way we do it? Mommy and daddy say you're part of a community because you're part of our family. So you have to shower. You have to brush your teeth. It's not really a choice. So how do you feel about that? Do you think you should have the freedom to decide if you take a shower or not? Or do you believe you should have some type of structure?
I mean, I think everybody should take a shower.
Okay.
It's just proper hygiene.
Okay. And what are the things that happen if you don't take a shower? Like, what happens to your body?
You start to smell bad, and you probably will begin breaking out because of germs and bacteria on your body from not cleansing yourself.
So what if we didn't tell you and your sister to take showers and baths? Is that something that you would just do because you do it on your own, or do we have to say, go take your shower?
It's something that I do on my own.
Okay. Anything else you want to share?
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for answering questions and sharing with the people. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, you guys. So I'm back. This is part 2 of the unschooling questions and why we decided to homeschool our family, our children. I actually took some time and wrote down some questions this time for part 2. And so the questions I want to answer are: why unschool? What is control? What does slavery have to do with school? Can your kids do whatever they want? What about bedtime? What about electronics? What about discipline? How do they learn math? How will they graduate and go to college? What about their social life? So I'm going to answer all of those questions in this video, hopefully quickly, but thoroughly. And at this point, you've probably already heard from my girls. That probably was edited into the middle of this two-part series. So if you haven't watched part one, you can go back and watch part one. I'll try to remember to leave an eye in the sky for that. And if you haven't seen the girls interview about, or not interview, but their thoughts on homeschool, traditional school versus homeschool versus unschooling, then you should have seen that part as part of this video. If I make it into a separate video, you'll see an eye in the sky for that as well. So let me get started on these questions. And I just randomly wrote these thoughts down because these are things that I wanted to talk about anyway, but I think these are some questions that people would have. If you're interested or just want to know more about unschooling, or if you're just enjoying hearing what our journey is, because I know I have a good amount of people who follow me on social media and they don't even have children or they have grandchildren. And so here goes part two of why we decided to unschool our family. So why unschool? So unschool because the big part came because I was homeschooling, as I talked about in video part one. And somewhere in the first year, I got just exhausted. It was a lot of work. Teaching, preparing the curriculum, grading the papers, keeping up with the grades. We did use a Time for Learning along with my own supplemental worksheets that I took off of online. I did make up some of my own tests, spelling tests, grammar tests, things like that. I would just randomly do on my own. I did have worksheets with different words and things like that. And then both of my girls were always above grade level in their subjects. Math was the only subject that they were kind of like on grade level. And so really keeping up with what they should know by a certain grade level, which again is all the systematic setup of the government. And I get that kids should know certain things, but the more, and let me just be clear, I didn't just jump into homeschool. Well, I kind of jumped into it, but I didn't jump into it without any research or without knowing anything. And it didn't matter what the research says, because at the end of the day, we were going to do what was best for our family, which is why I say we are not the typical unschooling family, because the way unschooling is set up, it is completely non-traditional. It is there really is no process or structure, so to speak. Everything has structure, but there's no structure. Like there's not a traditional layout, lesson plan, map of what should happen. That's what makes it unschooling. You're unlearning all of the traditional aspects of school. And even homeschool is just another version of public school, except for you do it, or traditional school, except for you do it in your home, and you can change the structure how you want, but it really is set up for you to learn a core set of subjects. You may learn some extras, you may have some extra curricular activities more than you would if you were in traditional school, but it's basically set up for you to learn the way you would learn in a regular school, except for you're doing it at home with a little bit more flexibility with your family, your siblings, maybe a co-op, people who also homeschool, that type of thing. You have field trips and stuff like that. But unschooling is pretty much not any of that. I can't even say it's the opposite. It's just not any of that. And so because I was overwhelmed with everything that I had to do as a mother, as a woman, as a wife, it just got to be too much. And I was like, something has to give. But what I noticed was that they were lacking in the learning, and traditional learning, like subjects and math and assignments and this and that. And they would ask me like, Mom, when are we going to go back to our regular schedule? When are we going to go back to learning? Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. And every day that passed was another day that we didn't get back to it, because life just got crazy. And at a point, they just stopped asking, and we would do some things here or there. We would go out. Like I said, we would go to the grocery store and measure and do all those types of things. But at a point, it was like, they're not learning nothing. And I started to feel really, really, really bad. And this is still in the homeschool phase. This is coming off of year one. I started to feel the overwhelm. And then going into year two, I was like, oh, I dreaded it. Like I was about to start school or go to school, and I dreaded it because I was like, something has to give. We are so off course. And it's like, before you knew it, 6 months had passed. Then we traveled. And so it was kind of, I felt a little okay because it's like, okay, we're traveling. They're world learning, or what they call world schooling, which is another form of, well, it can be unschooling or homeschooling. But usually when they say world schooling, their children are learning by the travel that they're doing around the world. And so I felt okay about that when we were in Thailand and all that. But the reality set in again. We were only in Thailand for like 3 months. And it's like, okay, now we're back. Let's get back to the basics. And the basics were planning curriculum and trying to find a different way to do it. And so I did use supplements like Time for Learning, which is a online program, which is what we actually were using when we were traveling to Thailand. But they rarely, if ever, logged on to it and actually used it. And so it just got to the point where we weren't even doing that. And we went back to the whole, excuse me planning out the curriculum or whatnot. But that didn't last very long again because I had so much on my plate, so much to do. And I said, well, I'm just going to get you guys a tutor for the next year. I can cover all the basic subjects. I'll just get you a tutor for math, because at the end of the day, they read well, they comprehend well, they can read information and give back to you a breakdown and a meaning and understanding, which is the basics of, I don't have to teach you history, but if somebody brings it up, or if you can go read it for yourself, I know that you can comprehend it. I know that you can read it. I know you can comprehend it. And I know you can give back to me orally what you just read. So I didn't spend too much time worrying over reading and history and all of those things and writing, because they understood it. You use writing and reading in everyday life. And they're very strong, very big computer users. So even though we learned a little bit of coding in the first year of homeschool, I didn't too much worry about that. I watched them. They can use an app and an iPhone and a social media, anything, just like most other children, very well. They just learn it. I've never taught them how to use a cell phone or any of that. They just, you give it to them. They literally just got new iPhones here last week. And my husband's like, oh, you're gonna have to teach them, because I'm an iPhone user. My husband is Android. He's like, you're gonna have to teach them. And I looked at him and we laughed. He's like, no, we're not teaching them anything. They'll figure it out. And they figured it out. They literally asked me once how to do something. And by the time I got ready to show my oldest, she was like, oh, I figured it out, which I knew she would. And so like, they have no problem taking things apart in their mind and making it, getting an understanding of it. So the only thing I was really concerned about was the math. And this put me back in that state of, oh my gosh, math is like my worst subject. I can't let them fail math. I can't let them be behind in math. But then I also got clear on focusing on, let's work on counting money. If you can add and subtract, which they can do, the multiplication thing just really became this big thing. And so back to why Unschool, the thing I love about the freedom that Unschool brings, and it's just that it's freedom, and that's why I'm so happy to sign up for it. It's not really something you sign up for, you just do it. I'm so happy to have it initiated. I talked to my husband, we sat down and talked about it. We were both in complete agreement, no problems. And I said, something has to give for me, because I feel like I'm failing them. And I was, it would be times where something would happen, I'll be like, this is my fault. I have failed you as a parent because I haven't been making you do your math, or putting, this stuff in front of you, whatever. And like, I would say that every now and again. And now that I think back on that, prior to right now, but I thought back on that, I'm like, that was horrible to say, because I said I feel bad and it's my fault, but really what I was doing was making them feel bad, like they were dumb, and nobody said this. This is all me saying this. They probably haven't even thought about it, but I felt like I'm putting this unnecessary pressure on them based on tradition, based on control, and based on a slavery mindset. And I say slavery because anytime you do something because somebody else said to do it, that's slavery. It's not the law. It's not, now, by law, you're supposed to have your children in school, but every school has a homeschooling mandate or ability. You just have to find out what it is for your state. So you don't have to have your children in traditional school. We do it because it's what we've been told to do, and we haven't researched for ourselves another way. We don't know that there is another way, or we feel that we can't because we work full-time, or whatever the case may be. There are ladies on YouTube who work full-time and still homeschool their children. They either have co-op programs, they have parent share programs, or they school their children in the evenings or maybe on the weekends. And they work in the day, and their children maybe stay with family or go to daycare, or they work something out, right? So they're still able to homeschool. They don't want anything given to them about the traditional school learning. So they make sure to set it up to where they're getting homeschool curriculum versus traditional school, which I think homeschool is great. It just didn't last, and it didn't work for our family based on future endeavors, more travel, me being able to do what makes me happy as a mom. And this is a side note, has nothing to do really with unschooling, but this is something that one of my mentors said, and it stuck with me because I couldn't verbalize it for myself. But as moms, we give up on a lot of things in life, or we stop doing things because it has been conditioned in us that you're a mom. You can't live for yourself. You can't be happy. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't. Your kids always come first. And yes, I think my kids come first, but not in every situation. Yes, I think my husband comes first, but not in every situation, because that is saying everybody comes first but me. And if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't put anybody else first. So that whole mindset of everybody has to come before mom, before the woman, before you're meant to take care, that is bull crap. Yeah, I said it. But I was living that life. And that is part of the reason I was having such a hard time. Not just because I had so much on my plate, but because I had set this up in my mind that I have to do things this way because the kids come first. They didn't ask to be here. I got to make sure they get an education. Da, 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 da. And I was like, I have a family member who every time I talk to her, it's, how are the kids doing in school? What's going on with school? And it's not because she's concerned or really is like, oh, what's going on? It's because she does not trust the path that I have chosen when it comes to educating my children. And it took me a little bit of time, but I'm okay with it. I'm way past okay with that now. And so we don't have those conversations, and I cut them short. If she brings it up, I say they're doing fine. They're learning well. And it's always the same. Well, are they gonna be able to go to college? And I'm going to get to that. And this, this whole thing, and I'll just change the subject. Or I just don't even go into the subject. I just don't even engage it. Because if you only know one way, if you only know how to do something a certain way, and that's how it's always been done. I mean, gosh, we're going into 2020, the year 2020. What worked in 1930, 1940, 1950, 60, 70, heck, in 1980 when I was born, does not work in 2020. Things are forever changing, and we have to adapt to the times. And it's unfair, it is controlling, and it is a slavery mindset, in my humble opinion, to keep our children hung up to the traditions of not only the government and what they say we should be teaching and how we should be teaching our school, where they get paid, just like slavery. They worked, the slaves worked, and the owners, the government, the overseers got paid for the work that we did. So we sent our children, we cattle them off to school like cows in a herd, and the government gets paid. Every time your child goes to school and sits at a desk, the government gets a certain amount of money per child. That is how schools pay their teachers. That's how they pay for lunches and all this other stuff. And I tell you, the school is the brokest place ever. Like, it was always something for the PTA, something, because the school never had any money. And I don't understand that when you're not getting new books, you're not getting new anything, maybe an iPad or a screen, depending on what school district you're in. But where's the money going that you're getting these thousands of dollars per student? And then some of the students are paying for their lunch. So I'm not real sure why. And then you're getting subsidy from the USDA for the lunch, if I'm understanding that correctly. So, like, is it really costing you to feed the children? And then we're paying for the lunch from the kickback. You're already like, where's the money going for each student? So anyways, it is meant to benefit the government, not the student. We do it because we can make money from college. I believe in college. For certain careers and things that say you have to have a degree. But for the most part, my kids have an understanding. I'm just going to skip down to what about college. They don't have to go to college if they don't want to. One, because why are we going to waste this money for you to go figure out that you didn't want to be there in the first place? Maybe you need to take the first year after high school off and decide if you want to go to college. That's your choice. But they also have an understanding that there are certain positions to where a college degree is necessary. And if you need one and don't have one, and you want to make a certain level of money for certain positions, and I think this will change by the time they graduate. But as of right now, for certain positions, there are college degrees required, or they're looking for people with a college degree, and they're going to pick those people over people who don't have a college degree just to weed out, because they have so many applications for positions now, and so much unemployment still out there. So they will take a person with a college degree over a person that doesn't have one. So understand, if you don't get a college degree, that you are playing roulette with the type of money you can make. Do not be mistaken that you can't make money. you're just playing roulette with the type of money you can make. So we have had this conversation, and we will continue to have this conversation, that you have a couple of choices to make. One, you need to get a trade. And I have told them this. If they don't want to go to college, that's fine. But I really strongly desire for them to get a trade. I don't care if you go to cosmetology school, if you learn how to do nails. Our youngest wants to be an actress. Very strongly, she has not wavered from it in the last couple of years. So if she pursues this and this is what she wants to do, we have an understanding that actresses don't get picked up all the time for movies and long-term roles. You may go months, years without a gig. So how will you make money outside of that? And so we've talked about this. We've had these conversations. So they get the real deal picture, but that does not change the fact that you're not going to be bullied or scared into anything. If you don't want to go to college, then you don't want to go to college. Because if you don't want to go to college when you're 18, who says when you're 29 that you may not change your mind? And if what you want is out of your reach monetarily, then you know you have to do something to increase your income. Yes. And so we've had these conversations. So I'm not pressuring my children to go to college. I'm not, especially not to go and waste the money. And I don't want them to go into debt like I did going to college and still not have a college degree, which a lot of that was my fault. But my point being, like, I'm not going to make you do something because everybody says that you should. If you want to be a doctor, a veterinarian, a nurse, unfortunately, you have to have a degree to be a teacher if you want to do that. Even if you want to teach online for the learning English or whatever, you have to have a degree to do that. So if you do want to do any of those things, an accountant, any of those things that require you to have a degree, because now you can go and become an attorney and not go to college. Like, that's a thing. You can go through the motions without actually having to go through law school. So that will save you tons of money. You pay for the exams, you get a private firm that's willing to back you. You can go that process. So there's certain things that you don't have to go to school for or to college for, and you can still be just fine. I know there's a lady right now who's she started off making $20, she went to $75 an hour, and now she's over, I think, $150 an hour, and she self-taught herself how to do HTML and CSS, which is coding, making websites and things like that. And this day right now, she makes over $100 an hour doing that. And she's self-taught. And there's so many coding camps and things like that. You can get an education online. I have an education school online as part of my business. I'm a digital entrepreneur and I teach digital education so that other people can build digital businesses, memberships, courses, learning how to use funnels and learning how to use social media and marketing and email marketing to build businesses. Don't need a college degree for that. I've made 6 figures in a whole business before doing that with no college degree, just a GED and some college education, but no degree. So college is definitely optional. So if they choose to go to college, that's how they'll go, and they'll go to college just like anybody else. You can get your high school diploma online through schools like Penn Foster and other schools. You can pay and sit for your high school diploma, which my girls, we've talked about this, so they may sit for their high school diploma. My oldest may sit in the next year or 2 for her high school diploma, which just requires her to go and get a tutor to sit down and go through all the math curriculum with her that she does not know and that she didn't learn at a traditional pace. And she can sit down, learn that math with that person, and then she can go and sit and get her high school diploma online. You just pay for the testing just like you would pay to get your GED. So she doesn't have to go to a traditional high school. She can get a high school diploma at 15 years old if she wants, or 16 years old if she wants to, and be done. And then she has 16, 17, 18, or however long, and she can go to college. You only need a high school diploma to go to college. Age is not a requirement for most settings to go to college or to take online college courses. So she could start college at 16 if she wanted to go. So she's really in a much better trajectory of not being in traditional school than having to go through the tradition that says you have to be 18, you have to go and be 17 or 18, graduate high school, then you go to college, or you may get to take a few college courses while in college, and then you have the opportunity to maybe finish college at 19 or 20 if you go early, right? Because they have a lot of those core programs. So again, I'm not against any of it. And if my children told me right now that they wanted to go to school, they can go to school. They can always go back to school because it's their choice. I'm giving them control over their education. But as a parent, my job is not to control what they learn, how they learn it, but it's to let them know what's available, the repercussions and consequences if they choose not to do something in a certain way, not because it's wrong, but because that's the way society is set up. So we live in this world, we're not of it, but we live in it. So we do have to play by the rules that have been set. And the rules say that in order to go to college, you have to have a high school diploma. So even though you're super smart and you may know how to read on a college level, you may even get a tutor and learn math on a college level, but you can't go to college and sit through the classes and get a degree if you don't have the high school diploma first. You can't go get your master's degree without a bachelor's degree first. You can't get a PhD without a master's degree, or being in a dual master, bachelor's and master's program. So that's the society's requirements. And so if you want to play in societal norms, you have to do what they say to do to those extents. But for the stuff that we can control and we don't have to do, we will not be doing it, because this is what works for our family. Again, I'm not knocking anybody who does it the traditional way. For some people, easy is better, and it's easier to follow a set system, a set of rules, a set plan. Hey, if that works for you, that works for you. I'm not knocking it, but I'm very passionate about having my eyes open for myself and my family to understand that there is a different way. And if this is not working, why suffer through it? Why continue to go to school and be bullied and hope that the teacher does their part? Why continue to wake your kids up at the crack of dawn to be at school where they're half awake, even if they've had a full night's sleep? It's cold outside right now. Who wants to get up and go out at 0 below whatever weather if you don't happen to live in some place like Florida where it's nice a good amount of the year, or California where it doesn't get down in the 40s and 30s all the time when it becomes winter, to have to go warm up the car, to go to school, to go eat the breakfast or whatever. Like, if you don't have to, why would you? And I'm just glad that I'm blessed as a mom to be able to give our children that opportunity of choice. So let me go back to my questions, because I kind of got out of order. So what is control? So this whole thing about control is the understanding that we have been taught as parents, again, with the societal norms of how we have to do school. Truancy laws have bullied us. I mean, I used to get in trouble all the time with bringing my kids to school late in Texas. And it was horrible, and it's not good to be late. That's not even what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, because I was always late, because I'm not a morning person. So now I got to get up and get 2 children ready. One's not even going to school, but I still got to drag her out of her sleep and out of the bed to go drop her off, because my husband's already at work. So I can't leave her home with anybody. I have to take her with me. Then I have to get the oldest one up, get her dressed, get her ready, get her. And, you know, sometimes kids are grouchy in the morning. They're having a bad day, just like me and you. Sometimes we wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Thankful to God that we wake up. But like, I'm late sometimes, and sometimes means like a few times a week. And so now I'm getting a paper pushed into my window saying, oh, you late, the amount of times you're going to be fine. Really? I mean, and late, I'm talking about like the bell just rang late, not an hour late, not even 10 or 15 minutes late, but like the bell just rung. I just barely made it to the door, but she should already be sitting in her seat. 5 minutes, 3 minutes late type of thing. And now, because I was late 3 times, 3 minutes late in a row, like, now I got a truancy letter. I may have to go to court, like that kind of thing. And so when it comes to unschooling, you have to unschool yourself as a parent. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about this. There's one lady, gosh, I can't remember her name. Oh my gosh. She's on the Steve Harvey show, and she's been on tons. She has a podcast. She's African-American lady. Her and her husband travel. They have 2 girls. I could see her face, but I cannot place her name. But she's radical something. But anyways, she's been unschooling her children for a very long time. They speak multiple languages, and I think they're just a little bit younger than our girls. Or the one is right there under the oldest, and the other one is like right under before my youngest. So they're young girls, but they're very smart. They've been unschooled for some time, and I can't think of her name, but anyways, she talked about this whole thing of the control aspect that we have as parents. And part of that is because of the fear that's been imposed on us, the traditionalism is that a word? Traditionalism? The traditional things that we've always gone with, because I'm an 80s baby. Homeschool? No, that wasn't a thing for us. And so we have to, and I've had to, and even my husband over time have had to come to an understanding of, if they don't know their multiplications and they're 16, it's not the end of the world. And if you just heard that, you're probably like, they don't know their multiplications at 16. Now, my kids do know multiplications. They don't know them as great as I believe they should know them, but I'm not worried. There was a time where I was worried, like, oh my gosh, I have failed. But the more I'm coming to understand that when a child's ready to learn something, just as when they're babies, they will start learning. Bedtime is a great example. Now they do have a bedtime, and this is where I say I don't do the traditional, even though it's not traditional, unschooling, but their bedtime was 9:30. I had bumped it to 10 and 11 on Fridays and Saturdays. Well, I did this partly because they kept expressing they want a different bedtime. If you can ask for it, you probably can handle it. But they have an understanding that this is your bedtime and you do need to start winding yourself down, because at the end of the day, my job as a parent is to keep you safe and healthy. You going to school every day is not a safety measure and it's not a health measure, but you getting a proper amount of sleep is a health measure and it's a safety measure, because if you don't sleep, your brain gets tired, you can have seizures, all kinds of medical things can go wrong when you're a growing child and your brain is still developing. So this leads me to electronics. They have free range on their electronics until the cutoff about 15 minutes before their bedtime. I believe it probably should be a little bit earlier, just because I know for myself, if you go to bed on electronics, your brain takes time to wind down. Science studies, all of that. However, right now they have free range with their electronics. They have cell phones. They've had cell phones for years. They have their own computers. We do monitor. They do. I get an alert on my phone if they want to download an app now. I monitor what they watch, the music that they listen to, etc., etc. There are some music that they cannot listen to. I'm like, what is that? Nope, turn it off. But they're really into K-pop, so they don't really listen to a whole bunch of rap and ratchet music. K-pop, for the most part, we don't know what they're saying, which could be a thing. But for the most part, they're really good girls. And I'm just really trying to teach them responsibility by giving them freedom to make choices. However, they are not grown. And this mama believes in discipline. And so we don't spank our children. We have not spanked our children since they were little bitty. We stopped doing that a long time ago because we understood that as a slavery concept, a control concept. I was spanked and people say, oh, I got spankings and I turned out fine. That may be the case. You have mentally conditioned yourself to say, I turned out fine. You probably didn't. You probably have some underlying issues. You probably hit people. You probably hit your children because it was done to you. You don't hit your children because you really believe that they should be hit when they do wrong. You hit your children because it was done to you and you believe in whoopings. I believe in a spanking on the butt. I'm not against it. I just do not spank my children anymore. And there's nothing that has happened to where I felt the need that I needed to spank them. And we had a really big issue happen, like serious issue happen maybe 5 years ago, that I would have got beat for. I mean, beat, and I probably would have deserved it. But I understood the spiritual side, and I understood the concept of you reap what you sow. I did some crazy stuff in my young life. And so if we want to be on the spiritual side, let's go there for a minute. Things that are happening that you're just like, I don't want my child to experience that, go through that, have access to that. If you had access to it, you experienced and you went through it, there's likely a legality, a tie there, a generational curse or some type of stronghold that happened in your life that will roll over. For example, abortion is a thing, right? And abortion has a spirit attached to it, a murdering spirit. But that can manifest in different ways, just as any other spirit can. So if you've experienced or had an abortion in your life, that can turn into something else. And now that you have your children, your living children, that spirit did not leave your womb like that, right? That is something that needs to be prayed off, fasted off. You need to be delivered from some stuff that came with that spirit of abortion, spirit of rape, spirit of pornography, spirit of whatever. Like, that is something that you dealt with or dabbled in your life. You think you're just gonna go and have children and just go on like everything's all good. I don't do that no more. I'm good. But you never got delivered from it. You never got set free from it. You never denounced it. You just moved on with life and didn't think about it no more. But now that you have children, understand that these things are for real. And so when this incident happened, it was very upsetting, very upsetting. But instead of spanking or whooping, my husband and I had a conversation. We had a very good understanding. There was a punishment involved that just didn't involve hitting, but there was discipline. And then there was a lot of prayer, and a lot of trust building had to happen. But all of that had to come with our understanding that to solve this problem, spanking or hitting or whatever is not the answer. Like, we had long stopped spanking when the incident happened, but like, that's just not the answer. Like, what do you get out of that? But we want to tell our young men don't hit women, but they grew up with a woman hitting them or a man hitting them. Again, I'm not telling you to spank your kids, don't spank your kids. That ain't my business. I believe in a little tap tap on the butt or the hand. I don't think anything's bad about that. However, beating your children, and I'm not even saying beating like abuse, but I'm saying, we say beat, like, I'm gonna beat your butt. Like, I mean, come on, let's communicate. And a lot of people spank because they have no communication skills. Nobody talked to you, so now you don't know how to talk to people. You don't understand that a child, yes, they're a child, but they still have a position in this world. And to Jesus, to God, you should probably not be treating children the way you do, if you treat them any type of way other than with respect as a person, as a human. They are still children, and they still do have to be disciplined and get to understand there's consequences for everything they do. But we are far past the control aspect. And my children know, and they have known this since day one, if ever you don't agree with something myself or your dad says, you are welcome to say, I don't agree with that, I don't like it. Why? Whatever. You can question it. It's not because I said so. Now, I have said that, but they usually laugh and know we're joking. But no, it's not because I said so. If you don't understand it, you need to ask me why, so I can tell you, so we can be clear, so that you don't say, oh, you're just being a jerk as a mom and you're not letting me do it. We don't do spending the night. We don't do sleepovers. And for a while, that was a going thing with one of them, and they just wanted to spend the night. Like, I don't understand why I can't do it. And so I had to break down to you why you cannot do it. It ain't about you. It's about me protecting you, keeping you safe and healthy. Again, if it's your safety and your health as a parent, that's my responsibility. That's where I step up. My job is to keep you safe and healthy. And if whatever you're wanting to do or whatever you did or could do or want is going to keep you from that, then you can't do it, period. And it's not about control. It's about me playing my role. Your role is to be a child with a voice, and you be treated as a human and get to experience, and you get to control your learning, what you do, what you don't want to learn. But my job is to keep you safe and healthy. So hopefully that answers that whole thing about the control, the slavery mindset, what does slavery have to do with school? I think I answered that pretty clearly. Can your kids do whatever they want to? I answered that clearly. No, they cannot. There's still some things that they can't do. If they don't want to eat their vegetables, guess what? If you have never tried this vegetable before, your understanding as a family, and this goes from my husband to myself to the children, unless something is going to make you sick because you're allergic to it or it doesn't digest with you well. Like my youngest, she doesn't do milk because it doesn't digest well, but now she starts to ask for milk, and I'm like, that don't do well on your stomach. But she was adamant, I want to try it. So at this point, I'm supposed to keep you healthy and safe, but you're demanding milk, so let me let you have some milk. And if you get sick, we've already talked about the fact that this may not sit on your stomach well, but you wanted to try it, and she tried it and she was fine. So there's that. But if there's a vegetable or something that comes across the plate and you're like, I don't like this, I don't want it, the rule is, and yes, I said rule, you have to try it. If you don't like it after you try it, no problem. We know that's not your cup of tea. I'm not gonna make you eat it because I cooked it. You better eat what I made or you're not gonna eat nothing. We don't do that. Like, who's force feeding people? Like, these are things that cause obesity. These are things that cause anorexia and bulimia, because people are being forced. Also, there's emotional reasons, but you're forcing people to eat when they don't want to. You're forcing people to eat things they don't want to eat. So now they have an aversion to anything that looks, smells, or whatever. We don't do that. Bedtime, yesterday we talked about that. What about electronics? We talked about that. What about discipline? Talked about that. What do they learn? How do they learn math? So they learn math and their extra languages. We are learning ASL, which is American Sign Language, Spanish. My oldest is wanting to learn Korean or Mandarin. She hasn't decided. She started with Mandarin, but I think she just now wants to learn Korean because, of course, she loves K-pop. And so we use a online school called Unschool, and it's teachers, other experts who teach certain languages. They teach life skills, they teach communication skills, math. They just took a multiplication course at the beginning of the month. Was it the end of last month of October? So they were online in a Zoom, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with Zoom, with other kids, and they were doing multiplication with M&Ms. And the lady teaching, she has a master's in education, and she was teaching how to understand multiplication from an easy aspect. And so we have them set to start taking 2 classes a month on various topics, but mostly we're going to use it for math and for their language, so they can have somebody else to communicate with in the language that they're learning. And we started off learning ASL as a family, which we are still going to be doing that. Spanish, but my oldest doesn't really want to. She wants to learn Spanish, but she wants to learn Korean or Mandarin first, and so that's her choice. I want her to learn Spanish with the family, but she doesn't want to. I'm not going to press you, because you're not going to pick it up if you don't want to. So I'm going to let her learn what she wants to. The youngest is doing Spanish. My husband's learning Spanish. I'm learning Spanish. And we are doing ASL, but we have been on a break from ASL, but we're going to get back to the American Sign Language. And so Outschool is a platform that we use for extra classes. I do think somewhere down the line, like when they get ready to say, hey, Mom, I want to go ahead and try to get my high school diploma now, and we will check and see where they sit with their math. And if they need a tutor, like a private tutor, they do have that on Outschool as well. Or we can get a private tutor from any of the other online math things. There's also online language things. One is called, they're using Duolingo. My youngest and my husband are using Duolingo to learn Spanish, but I use Fluent in 3 months. That's the core curriculum I started with. Also, ASL Rochelle on YouTube is who we use for ASL, and then lifeprint.com. The main professor there, he's a deaf professor teaching ASL, so we learn a lot from him on YouTube. And we actually can communicate a little bit in ASL now. And yeah, so we talked about graduating, going to college, and what about social life? This is the question that people always ask as I wrap up. I don't think they suffer from social. They talk about it from time to time. We go to church, so there's children at the church. There's people at the church to talk to. Sometimes it's like, I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to talk to people, because they're around us. But trust you me, they can have a great conversation because we don't talk. Baby talk to them, and since my kids were probably 6 years old, they probably knew about sex, because as soon as you ask me, then you can get the answer. So I broke it down to them, no sugarcoating, no nothing. But anything they ask me, anything they want to talk about, I'm going to talk about it. I'm never going to put anything off. I'm never, I'll tell you later. There's nothing they could ask me that I'm not going to talk to them about. We watch drug shows on TV, and I know that sounded horrible. Let me explain. We watched, what is the show? Drugs Inc. and all those other shows. They show people on PCP. They show people smoking meth. They show drug dealers. I want you to learn what this world that you are in, not of, but you're in, has going on. What type of parent keeping you safe and healthy would I be if you don't know that people are actually on drugs? It's an addiction. And some people do very strange things, like people are killing their children, unfortunately, because they are high on PCP. It's a real thing. And for you to understand this is an introduction to let you know that this world is not mommy and daddy, homeschool, unschool, travel the world, spend money on nice things, and that's it. It's not the reality. And the reason that you pray is not just about your life, but it's for the life of other people. That is part of your kingdom work, is to bring other souls to Christ. And you can start this by praying for the world, thinking about other people who don't have the access to things that you have, whether it be medical, whether it be safety, whether it be loving parents, whether it be trusting friends, whatever it is. There's another world. There's a whole nother life out there that you are not privy to, thank God, because you have parents who have sheltered you from that part of the world. But the reality is this part of the world exists. So I don't want you to ever get out and you see somebody and they're talking about drugs or talking about guns. We will be going to the gun range soon as a family, because I want you to hold a gun. I want you to touch a gun. I want you to see a gun, hear it, smell the gunpowder, so that when if you find yourself in a situation with a friend who's playing with their parents' gun or playing with a gun, you're not curious to be like, oh, let me hold it, let me touch it. I've never seen one. I've just heard about it. You don't need to, because you've touched it, you've held it, you shot it, you've done everything, because mommy and daddy took you to the gun range. We introduced you to these things, so you don't have to be introduced by someone else. We've told you about the risk of having sex unmarried, unprotected, because let's be clear, we may want you to wait till you're married, but if you don't, know that there is a real risk to your life of doing it unmarried, but also doing it unprotected. So we have all these conversations, and that's not an unschool thing. That's a life thing. That's a life school thing. But these are some things that I just wanted to share, like what goes on in unschooling. So we have no set curriculum. We have no set, tomorrow we're going to do this. The only thing that we said is if I schedule them for Outschool, I let them know in advance. Tomorrow, 8:30 or whatever time you're going to have Outschool. Now, they had their first class was 8:30 in the morning, and I told them like 2 weeks in advance, because my girls don't really get up at 8:30. They may be up because they do set their alarms. And this is another thing about not having control and really letting them have as much control in their life as possible, where they're still healthy and safe. But before I changed the bedtime, the youngest started setting her alarm to get up at 7. She's like, well, I have to go to bed at such and such a time. And, you know, I have to do certain things. Like, they do have chores. They do have to help wash clothes, get clothes out the dryer. You got to take your showers. You got to, you know, I help them with things like their hair and stuff that they don't know how to do quite by themselves all the way just yet. But for the most part, you know, you have chores, you have things, you have responsibilities as a member of this family. And you don't just get to sit around and do nothing and be on the computer all day. They spend quite a bit of time with their games and stuff, but there's days where they just be hanging out in the living room, asking me questions. They're in here with me. And I'm like, what y'all doing? Y'all ain't here with me today? Y'all miss your mom today? They don't want to be on the computer because they have burnt out, and they're just like, okay, I don't want to do that no more. And so some days they won't get on the computer. Some days they'll write. I'll go in there and they're writing in their notebooks, or they're just having a conversation with each other, laughing and giggling, and the computers and the phones are nowhere in sight. And it's not because I told them to, it's because I allowed them to have control over their life. And at a point, you have your own control. You're going to say, well, I don't have to hold on to my computer or my computer time, because I know I can put it down and I can come back when I want to, as long as it's not my bedtime, or I'm not supposed to be doing a chore or helping or do something. They help cook. They help chop up vegetables with a very big, strong butcher knife. So you got to learn, someday you're going to have to cook for yourself, and you got to know kitchen safety. We do measurements. This is another way for them to learn math. Like, it's all in there. It's just learning in a non-traditional sense. So hopefully this long video has helped you get more clear on what it means to unschool versus homeschool, and why my family chose to go from traditional school to 3 years of homeschooling to our first full year of unschooling, and we plan to continue it. Maybe not in the traditional sense or the normal sense of unschooling, but it works for us, and I feel so much freer. I'm not stuck to curriculums and gradings and all of this, but when it's time to sit down and learn, then we do that. We explore, we live life, we experience, we have conversations, we talk about real life topics, things that are going on in the real world, and we're able to back it all up with what God would have for us to do, and knowing that we have free will with God, so we definitely should have free will in life. But for every decision that we make, every choice that we take, there is a consequence, and there is a general reaction to the actions that we do. And I think that is a great way to help your children learn from their mistakes, because they're going to make them. Heck, I'm still making them at 38. But they are free, knowing that their parents have their back, and that even if you make a mistake, the best thing you can do is learn what not to do or what to do the next time, so that you can have a smoother transition and a smoother outcome. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and tick that bell so you get notifications on the next video that comes out. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until next time, I love you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back with another video real soon. Bye for now.